I don't know who I thought I was in April, but I read 17 books, so let's chat about them. Hi, I'm Telly and welcome to my April wrap up. I'm going to do lowest rated to highest rated, but as a general thing, I am having a wonderful reading year. I'm either picking up fantastic books or I'm just giving out the 5 stars. I'm just like finding things I enjoy and I'm like, yeah, you get a 5 star, you get a 5 star. So let's go through them. The lowest rated book I read in April was 3 stars, which is still so good. And that was The Familiar by Lee Bardugo. This is a copy I got from a little library in my village. 3 stars, it was enjoyable, but I'm unlikely to reread it. So this is a historical kind of low fantasy book. It is set in Madrid during the Spanish Golden Age, at a time when people who are Jewish have to hide the fact that they are Jewish, or they will be picked up by inquisitors, possibly the history side of life. I'm not too good on that. I'm more about vibes, modern day vibes. In this, we follow Lucia, who is a servant for a wealthy family. She is of Jewish descent and she is hiding that so she doesn't get picked up and arrested and or tortured. She has a type of magic that she's keeping under wraps because being caught with magic is a surefire way of getting yourself arrested. And one day she accidentally performs something that means that her mistress discovers that she has magic. And her mistress is desperate to improve her and her husband's standing in society. So she decides she's going to use Lucia's magic to get her there. As more and more attention is drawn to them, the king becomes interested in Lucia and she is then forcefully volunteered to take part in a competition that is upcoming, and it is of people with various types of magic, and the winner will be given a position in the king's guard or something along those lines. I'm already forgetting some of the plot beats of this. And Lucia gets given a gentleman who is there to help train her. Everyone is scared of him because he is very dark and very mysterious and very confident with a knife. Her and this gentleman become quite close, and she finds out that some magic is fake and some is hidden. I really enjoyed this, but I just do not foresee myself rereading it. I don't often feel an inkling to reread historical books, so this will be going back into the little library for someone else to pick up and enjoy. A 3.5 star read for this month was the second volume of My Love Mix-Up. I briefly discussed this in my last wrap-up when I read the first volume of this series. I'm actually not going to continue with this series after this volume. I was reading 2 manga series that have very similar plot lines, and the other one I just find the characters slightly more interesting than these ones, unfortunately. So there's no point in reading 2 mangas that have the same plot line if one of them I'm not as invested in. So this is set in a high school, and we follow a trio of school friends who are all kind of, well, there's lots of secret crushes going on and no one wanting to admit to it and stuff, and then some things get found out and there are some mistakes on who has a crush on who, and it is quite fun and the dynamics between them is really fun. But as I said, I just find myself gravitating more towards the other series of a similar plot line. And then before we get into the 4 stars, I had a 3.75 read this month, and that was The Unworthy by Augustina Bastarrica. I actually read this for a Project 80% episode, so I do have my thoughts. I do have like my more in-depth thoughts over there, but this is the most recent release by this author. It is a horror book. The author's previous work was Tender as the Flesh, which I absolutely love. That was a 5-star for me. And this is set in a post-apocalyptic world in which something has happened to the world that caused a flood and then a drought, or a drought then a flood, and we don't learn a lot about that side of it. We are following our main character, whose name I can't remember. I'm not even entirely sure if she has a name. She probably, I can't remember. And she is living in the Sisterhood, which is a small convent that gives a home to women that have survived this kind of end of the world scenario. And the convent is like a breeding ground for distrust and kind of like violence against one another. They get very gleeful at the idea of punishing one another and coming up with horrific punishments for one another. And it's all run by the superior sister, who is very free with her punishments, such as whipping them, forcing them to, I don't know, stand naked outside, tied up for ages, these kind of things. It's all very horrific. And our main character, against the kind of law of this sacred sisterhood, is keeping a diary basically of what is happening, and they are not supposed to be reading or writing, so she has to keep this secret. And throughout the diary entries, there's little like sprinklings of what happened with the world, or what it was like beforehand, but we never really get like the crux of that, because it is mostly just about this little pocket of a society that has been built up, and the tension builds. A lot of discoveries are made. Our main character befriends and eventually kind of has an intimate relationship with a new lady that has joined them, and they start to question what is happening and what the world is like outside of their convent. I gave this 3.75 because ultimately the first half, this book is less than 200 pages, but ultimately the first half dragged so much for me. It was very, I couldn't quite get along with the pacing, and also it was just scene after scene of them like trying to torture one another, which just wasn't really my vibe. But then once the new character entered it, and there was like the love interest and that blossoming of that, and then the questioning of reality and what is actually happening to them, that's when I got really intrigued. So that was like the second half of the book, and then I flew through it. So that is why I landed on 3.75. The writing style was very interesting. I think the author, obviously this is a translated work, the author's writing as translated, I can't obviously comment to it in its original language, but I find it really really kind of readable. It's not overly descriptive. It was the same in Tender as the Flesh, but I really enjoy how it is written, and I think that this book really was quite a testament to the writing style of the author, because it was done in diary entries, and I was I could still see the author's writing style. So yeah, I definitely would recommend picking this up if you enjoy the author. As I said, it's under 200 pages, and kind of non-horror seems to be the thing this year, because there's a new Caitlin Starlin, is that her name, book coming out as well this year. And yeah, this seems to be the vibe. And as we all know, dystopian books and horror books tend to reflect what is going on with society, so I think that this kind of thing is spot on. Now we're into our 4 stars for the month. So the first one is Valor by John Gwynne. So this is the second book in the Faithful and the Fallen series. This is a 4-book series that I am making my way through. I'm intending on finishing this year and not leaving it on my series tracker in purgatory forever. But this is kind of like a medieval-esque inspired fantasy setting, and we follow various groups of people as there's a prophecy that there'll be is it dark Dark Star and Black Sun or something like that. I cannot remember what the exact phrasing is. There's a prophecy that there are going to be these two people that rise and take power, and one is obviously the negative side of that power, and one is a positive side of that power. And so we follow a whole bunch of different people as they get pulled into this prophecy, and people like someone believing that he is the good side of it, whilst clearly not being the good side of it, not realizing it yet. So we're obviously going to watch like the moral downfall of people. There's characters that are so disgusting that I just every time they're on page. There's characters that I absolutely adore. I do wish that we followed more female characters. I think that that would definitely be a plus, because we do follow a lot of characters. So I do think that some more female perspectives could be sprinkled in. But I'm enjoying this series so far, and I'm looking forward to picking up number 3, and hopefully I'm going to maintain a good pace with this one. I decided to pick it up. I was intrigued, but Becca from Becca and the Books is doing a catch-up book club for this. I think I'm a book behind now, but I'm intending on getting caught up quite quickly. I also read A Study in Drowning by Ava Reid. So I have pretty much all of Ava Reid's books on my shelves. And look at this gorgeous Waterstones copy. And I haven't read them yet because I've been really nervous, because I think I'm going to adore them, and I've been nervous in case to read them in case I don't. I have this problem with a lot of books, and you'll find that. And that's why a lot of my series sit on like purgatory, because I get nervous that what about if the series doesn't end in a way I like or whatever. And this is actually going to have a second book as well that comes out this year, which I'm very excited for. I didn't realise that when I read this. I assumed it was a standalone. I believe when it was released it was considered to be a standalone, and since then Ava Reid has decided to write a second one, which is called a Theory in Drowning, I think. We follow Effie, who is a architecture student at a college. She desperately wanted to be a literature student, and she is a huge fan of literature and reading. And unfortunately, in this world, literature is considered just for men. Effie is the only female on the architecture course, and she is treated very poorly because of that. A lot of sexist comments are made, and her professor definitely takes advantage of the fact that she is the only female on the course, and that she is in a position that she cannot say no to things. She now has a horrible reputation that was very much kind of like pushed upon her, and so she is just trying to get by. She has a favourite author who is like the most well-known author for the north, and then there is the south of the island that are almost looked down on for being quite old-fashioned in their belief. They still believe in a lot of the gods and fae and things like that, whereas the north think themselves as quite too smart and too knowledgeable and too well read for those kind of things. And the author that she absolutely loves has recently passed, and then a competition comes across Effie's desk almost, and it is to redesign the home that he has left behind. His family now live, well, like his son and his wife now live there, and she enters the competition and wins it, and then she goes down to this home in the south to stay there whilst she works on her redesign of it. When she gets there, she finds another student, Preston, who is a literature student, and he is also from another land, and they are quite looked down upon in society for being foreigners. Despite starting off as kind of academic rivals, they realise that they have a lot in common, and that they really need to work together if they want to get to the bottom of the mystery of this author. I loved this. I loved the weaving of the folklore into it. I really liked the tension that Ava Reid built, like leading up to the climax of the book, the atmosphere of it. No, Ava Reid's writing is, it's stunning. Okay, it's like, it's, for me, it's haunting, it's atmospheric, it's beautiful, it's lyrical, and I just, what she can do with words and sentences is amazing, and it's exactly what I thought it would be. So I'm so pleased that it didn't disappoint, and I'm very excited to read the second book in this series. It's also encouraged me to finally pick up the rest of Ava Reid's books that I have as well. But yeah, I really loved this. I really loved Effie as a character. I loved Preston as a character, and I'm intrigued to see what happens next, because this was this book did have a conclusion. It was finished, so I'm very intrigued to see what Ava Reid, like, what more she felt she had to say to write a second book to this that didn't ultimately require one, but I'm not going to complain. Volume 2 of Blue Flag is the other manga I mentioned. So this is again a manga set in a school that follows 3 students and like the misunderstandings regarding who they love, have crushes on, etc. And it kind of helps new love and new friendships blossom. I really enjoy the secondary cast of characters in this series as well, which is ultimately why I decided I was going to continue with this manga and put the other one to the side. And I just really, really adore the art style in this series as well. So yeah, I'm excited to continue with this series. And then my final 4-star for the month is The Summer I Ate the Rich by Maritza Ameki Muliti. I'm sure I've mispronounced them, and I'm very apologetic for that. I believe they are sisters or sister-in-law. No, I think they're sisters. I was reading their bio. I think this is a debut, and this is a YA kind of literary horror. It is marketed as horror, but I don't want like the wrong type of horror reader to pick it up. I would say it's more on like the horror light side, and very much more a literary piece, which is, I just don't want people who are expecting like dark horror to pick this up and then be disappointed and then like give it a bad rating because it was not what they were expecting, if that makes sense. So we follow Brielle, who is a Haitian migrant who lives in the US with her mother. Her mother brought her over when she was a baby. She has 4, I believe, sisters back in Haiti, and she's never actually met them or doesn't remember ever actually meeting them, but she has a lot of video calls with them. And she has grown up with her mother, working herself to the bone as a like maid slash servant for this wealthy family, just so that Brielle can have the opportunity for that like dream life in the US that a lot of migrants are looking for their children. Brielle's passion is cooking, and she really desperately wants to run a supper club, which are these like exclusive, like a wealthy person or family will hire you to come to their house and do like an exclusive like 4-course meal or whatever that they can invite their friends to and be all like, oh, I found blah blah blah, I found this chef first, like that kind of vibe. But Brielle's mum is extremely sick. She got sick on the job, but they cannot afford her mother's medication. So Brielle has to work as much as she can to help with bills and help her mum, because she doesn't want her mum to be working herself into the ground, obviously. And then her mum loses her job, so Brielle starts doing the supper club that she always dreamed of on the side. And then throughout this all, Brielle is also hiding the secret that she is a Haitian zombie, and she discovers that if she uses human flesh in the food that she is serving up to the wealthy, they absolutely love the food, and she can slightly manipulate them as well when they eat her cooking. Alongside that, Brielle also ends up working for the family that her mother worked for, but in their offices. And she finds herself in a position where she is kind of one-on-one with the type with the part of society that are kind of determined to keep her and her mother down. It's very interesting. It has a very interesting discussion on class and like the capitalist nature of medication, racial inequality, and like the socioeconomics that the country is built upon. My 4.25 for the month is Loathe to Love You by Ali Hazelwood. So this is the collection of her three STEMinist novellas, Under One Roof, Stuck With You, and Below Zero. I actually have a vlog coming out. It'll be coming out the beginning of June if everything goes correctly, in which I'm reading all of Ali Hazelwood's books, so I'll have more comprehensive thoughts in that future video. But I enjoyed the concept of this. Ali Hazelwood played with like timelines in this a little bit, in that we get, so for instance, the first one is the Under One Roof. We get the first chapter is like present day, and then like the prologue is present day, and then it goes to like 6 months ago, and then we watch the build up of them getting to that relationship that we see a glimpse of in the prologue. And another one of them, I think it's the Stuck With You, is done like jumping to and from in time, different snippets of when the characters met and their like interactions and stuff to how we got to now. And the thing I love most about this is the three female characters are best friends. So we get little glimpses of the other couples through each other's stories. And then at the end, we had a bonus chapter, which was the three male love interests interacting from their point of view, which I absolutely loved. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed this. I loved how I was not expecting them to interlock, which I just thought was a really fun way to do it. And then my only 4.5 read for the month was volume 3 of Blue Flag. I just feel like this is getting better and better, and I just love the characters, and I love the secondary characters, and I just love like them all interacting, and it just feels so, this isn't, this has no reflection of my teenage life, not least because I did not grow up in Japan, but it feels so nostalgic for being a teenager and kind of going through these motions of like, am I in love with this person? Is it a crush? Do I just like him as a friend? And these kind of things, and the confusion that can give you, and like the characters, some of the characters just hold all of this like guilt over I just think it really encapsulates teenagehood so well. And yeah, and I want to get to volume 4 ASAP. I need to get it. I'm reading these from the library, so as soon as that's available, I'm getting it. I had a couple of 4.75 reads for the month, so we'll start with Ali Hazelwood, The Love Hypothesis. Again, I have a vlog coming out with more thoughts on this. For that vlog, I've been reading them all in publication order, so it's been really interesting to watch like Ali Hazelwood's writing evolve over that time. But this was the original one. It was originally Raylo fan fiction, and you can definitely see like some of the elements in here. The main character Adam is very much Adam Driver, and this is my introduction to Ali Hazelwood's writing, and it really captured my attention. I really loved it. I loved the interactions between the couple. I really enjoyed like the build up of them as a relationship. And our main character Olive is not labeled as, but it's kind of written as quite demi, and I enjoy seeing things like that in romance. I am still quite a newbie romance reader in a contemporary way, but I thought that this was fun. It was fluffy, and I just kind of loved it. But if you want more thoughts, more in-depth thoughts, check out my reading vlog when that comes out. I also read Looking for Smoke by K.A. Cabell. this is a YA like murder mystery. It's kind of like I would say it's a very good comp would be One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus, if you've read that. I think that this would be quite a good comp. However, this is set in a Blackfeet community, and a young girl is killed during a like event, a giveaway event that's being held to raise awareness for someone's missing sister. And then we follow the four characters who are the last ones to see Samantha Whitetail alive. They are obviously thrust into the murder investigation, and they also decide to carry out their own investigations. One of the characters we follow is new to the reservation. She is kind of like an outcast because her dad is Blackfoot and her mum is, I think, Caucasian, and so she hasn't grown up in the reservation. She's only just moved there, so she's very much treated as an outsider. And so we get to see her kind of build relationships amongst these other teenagers, and then we also, through her lens, get to see get to learn about the other characters' relationships to one another, because obviously a lot of them have known each other since like childhood, so they've got a lot of history to unpack, and there's a lot of kind of mistrust, obviously, because it's likely that one of them was involved in the murder of Samantha, and also there's the missing girl that's still a issue. I really liked this book. It was actually the second book this month that I read surrounding this topic of missing and murdered indigenous women, which is obviously a big issue across the US, and I appreciate a YA book like taking such a heavy topic and making it so digestible for a younger audience, and kind of explaining it in a way that doesn't treat the reader as they're stupid. I thought this was a really good book. I do think it was a tad long. Possibly the pacing could have been like ramped up a bit, but what it did really well. Also of note, I did Looking for Smoke as an audiobook, and it had a full cast narrators, and it was a great experience, so I do fully recommend that if that is something that's accessible to you. And then if we go on to my 5-star ratings, so I'll do the one that's kind of the companion to Looking for Smoke almost. I read Sisters of the Lost Nation by Nick Medina. So this is a adult thriller / horror that kind of follows the same vein. So it is set in a indigenous tribe, or on indigenous tribal land. We follow our main character Anna, who has a bit of a hard time of it. They are very much an outcast at school. They kind of don't really fit in. There is like a secondary story throughout of Anna finding themselves and kind of becoming comfortable in possibly like a gender fluidity way. I don't want to speak to it. You need to read it because it's so good. How Anna kind of embraces themselves. Prior to the start of the story, a casino was built on tribal land by a family that are from the tribe, but obviously it very much caters to white folks who come into their land to go to this casino. It also adds to the kind of gambling and alcohol addiction issues that do run rife throughout indigenous peoples, from my understanding. And Anna works at the casino. She works in the hotel as a maid, and she one day gets kind of upgraded to one of the higher levels, which is like an exclusive floor, and you are not allowed to see the patrons up there. and she starts to question what those rooms are being used for because it feels kind of illegal. And then she starts to notice like women or not young women or like girls um coming out of these rooms in tears and stuff, and she really obviously starts to question what is happening. And then her sister, who has recently got a job at the casino as well, goes missing, and Anna remembers that there are actually a lot of women who have been going missing recently. And a big issue within this story, and I actually have since learned is a big issue in real life, is that the tribal police can only investigate crimes on their land by people of the tribe. So if someone like a Caucasian person comes into their land and carries out a crime, they cannot be investigated or arrested by the tribal police, and it goes down to the police force for the nearest town. However, they don't care. They do not want to get involved in anything on tribal land, and it's such a grey area, and it is such a loophole for a lot of illegal things to happen. And this is and this, you know, doesn't help with these missing and murdered and missing Indigenous women. And this story, Sisters of Lost Nation, very much dives into that, and it gives it names. It gives it like a face, you know, and it really kind of it brings the harrowing nature of what is going on in some of these pockets of the USA, in which people can just abuse the system and no one's doing anything about it. I think this is such a poignant book in bringing attention to that, and Nick Medina's writing was particularly good, I thought. I have his other book on my TBR to read shortly, which is the Indian Burial Ground, I think it's called. But yeah, if you haven't picked this up yet, I would thoroughly recommend picking it up. I then started a new series without completing any of the other series, but I read Dungeon Crawler Carl, the first book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. For me, this was a 5-star. It is ridiculous and the humor really hit for me. So yeah, I did do this via audio, which I think very much adds to the kind of fun of the book. And if that is accessible to you, I would recommend doing it as an audio, because I just think the narrators did such a good job, and they have like small sound effects and things like that. In Dungeon Crawler Carl, basically an apocalypse happens to the world. So one day, it's the middle of the night for Carl. Every building just gets basically crushed into the ground, including any of the inhabitants of the building, gone. And then anyone that was outside of a building at the time is given an hour to make their way through one of the like checkpoints into the dungeons, and they are now on a reality TV show for aliens. Yeah, and it's very much like an RPG style. And so Carl is our main character who we follow. He is out in the middle of the night trying to get his cat, Princess Donut, back into the house. And this happens, so he goes down into the dungeons with Princess Donut, who is given a voice down there, and she is hilarious in my opinion. The entire setup of it is so good. It is just like an RPG, and he has to fight to get through these different levels. So I think there's like 14 levels of dungeons. You have to like fight your way through, defeat the boss, go down. It's a reality show, so people are watching and they vote for you. And then so him and Princess Donut get like whisked out to take part in interviews and then drop back in the dungeon and things like that. I really enjoyed it. It is a long book series. I am concerned that the comedy and the banter could get annoying and abrasive over time. So I'm very aware of that this is a series I should pace out, which usually isn't a problem for me. But I do think if I were to try and do lots of books in a row of this series, or like quite close together, I think I could get burnt out on the comedy of it. So I am trying to pace it, but I would say it's very much I would say it's got a very, I don't know the nationality of the author, but it feels like it's got a very British humor to it. It's very reminiscent of like Red Dwarf and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Yeah, that kind of vibe. I would very much say that this has that. So I think it's one of those books that the comedy is going to work for you or it's not. And luckily, the first one, it worked for me, especially in audio format. I've recommended it to a few people. And yeah, for me, it was a 5-star read. I was entertained throughout. It was a fun adventure for me throughout. And I am looking forward to book 2. I am going to give it a little bit before I pick it up, maybe like a month, and then I'll do book 2. They Bloom at Night by Trang Tran Chan, and this is a YA horror. I read this, I believe, for a Project 80% episode, so again, if you want more thoughts, I would go check out that video. But this is set, so this is a queer YA, and I read the author's debut, which was She Is a Haunting, and gave that 5 stars. Absolutely loved it. The atmosphere in that was amazing, and this one has has an atmosphere that's like a micro location trope for me, but like something that I'm obsessed with, and it's like set in a bayou. It's set in a bayou, and I just love that as a location, and I love books that have that as a location. And this, just the atmosphere. Obviously, it's only good if people get if they get the atmosphere of the location right. But those books that like you can like feel you can feel the humidity. You can like taste the murkiness of it. I don't know. There's just something about it in that particular setting that really works for me, and this really worked for me. So it's set in almost post-apocalyptic. Something has happened to the town of Mercy, which is in Louisiana, and there was like a flood, and now the sea creatures are mutated. And we follow our main character Noon, who's like a fisher person with her mum, and they go out and trawl the sea for fish, or the bayou or whatever for fish, and bring them back and sell them. And they've also discovered like mutated creatures under the sea, so they've become quite known for being able to find these mutated creatures. And Noon's mum, so when this flood happened, Noon's brother and dad were lost to it, and her mum is convinced that they have been turned, or they've mutated into creatures under the sea. So her mum is determined that they are going to be able to find them. So that is why they keep going out and keep going out and keep going out. And then one day it's brought to Noon's attention that scientists who are there like investigating the red algae and stuff that's been left behind and just trying to work out what's going on have been going missing, possibly pulled into the water. And so her and her mum are tasked with finding the creature that's doing this by like a local gangster kind of thing who runs he basically runs the town now, because so many people have abandoned the town, and he actually owns their boat. So he agrees that he will kind of end the repayments on the boat if they find this creature, because he wants to basically set up like an oddity museum to get more tourists to the area. There's body horror in this, I will tell you that, and it worked for me. It really worked for me. I think that this is an auto read author for me, and I don't know. I'm so excited for anything that they come up with next. I'm already excited for whatever they come up with next. I finally read Bat Eater. In the UK, it's just Bat Eater. I know in the US, it's Bat Eater and other names for Cora Zeng. Is that it? Cora. I prefer like that longer name, but yeah, over here it's just Bat Eater, and this is by Kylie Lee Baker. So this is set in the height of the pandemic. It's literally set in 2020, and we follow Cora, who lives in New York, and she has a white mum and a Chinese dad. And then she is very, very close with her stepsister, who they share a dad. And her stepsister has a Chinese mum. So they don't look overly similar, but they are like close sisters. And during the lockdown, they go out to get hold of like toilet roll and other essentials. And then when they're waiting for the underground train, someone calls her sister a bat eater and pushes her in front of the train. And Cora witnesses the death. And the man who done it is never caught. So then we pick up like 6 months later, and Cora is working as a crime scene cleaner, and she is struggling so much with so many kind of anxiety issues and OCD issues. And she is very... she's on the struggle bus, and she's like haunted by the fact that they've never found out what happened to, or never found the person that killed her sister. She's just really, really struggling. And then her and the two people that she always, like her little team that she always works alongside with the cleaning, realize that there is a bit of a noticeable pattern in a lot of the bodies they're cleaning. They tend to clean in Chinatown, and they notice that a lot of people that are turning up dead are Chinese, and also they find dead bats at the scene, and they come to realize there's a serial killer at large that the police don't know about, and they get pulled into something that they definitely should not have got pulled into. And at the same time, Cora starts seeing a horrific ghost that she's convinced is her sister, and she's convinced her sister's come to help her solve her murder. It is, oh, it's so creepy, and the atmosphere is so creepy. And I think this was a debut for the author, and oh my god, it was such a good book. It managed to capture, obviously I wasn't in New York, but it managed to capture like the fear of the lockdown very well, I thought. And I'm not... I don't tend to be drawn to picking up books that discuss Corona or the lockdown, but this one I think came at it as such an interesting way, and it was so integral to the plot of the story. It was so integral to the storyline, and I just... this has been heavily hyped for a good reason, and it is very justified. I then finished a duology. Woo! I ticked something off my series list. It was a duology, but I've still done it. I read Rebel Witch by Kristen Cicerelli, and this is the second in the Rebel Witch series, and also this is the second in the Crimson Moth series, and also like finishes it off. So this is a continuation from the first book, in which, oh, how do I talk about this though without spoilers? So in the first book, we follow Rune, who is a witch in hiding, because this is a world where witches are killed, like kidnapped and killed. They are not trusted at all, and this is due to the city being run by witches prior to when the book started, and they were horrible and did a horrible job and were horrible people. And so when they eventually got taken down, witches were just slaughtered, absolutely slaughtered. And Rune spends her days as a like socialite, and she pretends to be a little airheaded socialite, and all I care about is clothes and but at night she's the Crimson Moth, and she helps witches escape the city. And she's known as the Crimson Moth because when you carry out magic, it leaves a essence of the magic, and hers is a little moth. And then we also follow Gideon, who is a very well-renowned witch hunter. He is also the brother of Rune's best friend. And when he discovers that the witches are using Rune's transport systems to get out of the city, he decides he's going to fake date her to try and find out who is using her transport. And Rune decides that she'll go ahead with the dating. She's also going to fake date. So they both are fake dating each other without the other knowing. And so that she can find out how close the witch hunters are to finding her. And da-da. And the first one ended on such an amazing cliffhanger. And I was like, oh, I was so emotionally invested. And this second book, it didn't disappoint. It kept the pace. I was just as emotionally invested. I genuinely was tearing up at some points. I just think this as a duology is so good, and I really appreciate an author doing a duology, being succinct in their story, not stretching it out to a trilogy just because that seems to be the norm. And I really appreciate this is a YA, and so I love that this is something that's so widely available for readers. And this is something I would have loved as a teenager. And yeah, I just really enjoyed the storyline. I really enjoyed Rune and Gideon. And this second book, the tension between the two of them, oh my god, my heart could not cope. And yeah, I loved it. And then finally, the last book we can talk about this month is Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. So in April, this was my favourite Ali Hazelwood read. That's possibly changed now. Check out my vlog. But I said this one is the second Ali Hazelwood book, and it like very much, the characters are very kind of similar but different enough that it was still very enjoyable. And in this we have like these two characters who went to college together, or no, not college, it was like an internship or something after college. I don't really understand how the schooling system works in the USA, and I also do not understand how obviously academia and science schooling works. But they were like working in this lab together, and it was very well known amongst all the students that Levi hated B, to the point he couldn't even be in a room with her. Anyway, so some time has passed, and B gets her dream job of working with NASA to lead a neuroengineering project, and she is so excited, only to discover that Levi is there, and he is her co-lead on like another side of it. She does like the brain side and he does the technology side or something, and so they're kind of forced together to work together and possibly discover that maybe he didn't hate her all along. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Honestly, there were no misses from the Ali Hazelwood books I've read thus far. So yeah, that is everything I read in April. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books. Let me know your favourite read of April, or if you don't have anything to say, just drop a rocket ship emoji for Love on a Brain. And make sure to like this video if you like, subscribe if you wanna, especially if you want to be notified when my Ali Hazelwood vlog comes out. And thank you so much for joining me today. Bye friends.